Everybody is buzzing about the hockey game last night. The Four Nations final was last night, and wouldn't you know, Team Canada comes out on top and in glorious fashion, 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid, the all-world player, arguably one of the very best of the NHL, if not the best, ended up scoring the game-winning goal, and it lived up to the billing. One of the most exciting tournaments we've ever seen, probably in the history of hockey as well, fair to say. So Canada ends up winning. They raise the trophy, as you see there. John Cooper, Connor McDavid talked about taking the trophy home for their country afterward.
Well, it was, when you come into these short tournaments, you're trying to put players in position to succeed. The first move was Braden Point's been a center all his life. And I thought putting Point with McDavid was going to help the speed factor, and it was just whether Point was going to be comfortable playing the wing, and he surely was, and he proved that. And so, Stoney was, I thought that line had great chemistry, but, ultimately in the end, as that game went on, Mitch had legs tonight, and that kid can make plays, and as we saw tonight, he just needed one chance to make a play, and he did, and just, it comes down to a gut feel and how the guys are going, and I felt that those three guys could do it, and they did.
Yeah, really exciting. Just found a way. I thought that was, I thought everyone played solid. I wasn't great all night, but, we just found a way tonight.
Can you describe your feeling, Connor?
Yeah, obviously it means a lot to our group. I think a lot of people were wondering if, what this tournament would mean to guys, and obviously you can see what it means to everyone on our side. It was, really exciting.
As far as Team USA, they come up one game short, one overtime short. Here's Mike Sullivan, the coach, on being honored to coach them all the way through.
Yeah, they were a great group to coach. It was an incredible honor to coach these guys. There's a lot of familiarity and relationships that these guys have, from whether it's playing at the National Development Program or a lot of these guys have played together in international play, even though they might play on separate teams in the NHL. We could tell early on as a coaching staff that these guys really enjoyed being around one another, and I think that chemistry carried on to the ice. So we've talked to them from day one. I shared this with you guys, that we felt one of the biggest challenges in tournaments like this is to become a team, and I thought they did an incredible job. You have to accept roles that maybe you're not accustomed to playing when you put a group of players like this together to a man. Every guy brought so much professionalism, was willing to play any sort of role to try to help the team win. Couldn't be more proud of this group. And I thought, just to be around them, you could feel how much they cared, not only about performance, but also about one another.
As far as the MVP of the Four Nations series, it ended up being Nathan McKinnon. He takes home the trophy. He was the most valuable player, as we now get back to the rest of the NHL season coming up next week. All right, ESPN and Major League Baseball make a joint announcement, which probably surprises a lot of people, because you're not going to see baseball on ESPN anymore after this season. Once the contract comes to a close, they have mutually agreed to opt out of the final 3 years of their deal, according to The Athletic. ESPN also released a statement saying that in making the decision, they applied the same discipline, fiscal responsibility that has built ESPN to their industry-leading live event portfolio. As they continue to grow the audience, linear, digital, and social platforms, been through the process, remain open to explore new ways to serve Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball actually released a statement before ESPN. They said that they don't believe that pay TV and ESPN's primary distribution platform is the future of video distribution or the best platform for content. Furthermore, we have not been pleased with the minimal coverage that Major League Baseball has received from ESPN. Essentially, Major League Baseball is opting out. Meanwhile, how about not playing? That's the story with Victor Wembayama. Can you believe it? Going to miss the remainder of the season for the San Antonio Spurs. with reported blood clots. Very scary situation for Wemby. We've seen this happen in sports before. Hopefully he can return healthy next season. Meanwhile, the Spurs beat the Suns without him, 120-109. De'Aaron Fox had 11 straight points in the final 3 minutes. He had 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. LeBron James is 40 years old, and he had 40 points again. The Lakers beat the Trailblazers 110-102. He had 8 straight points in the fourth quarter. Luka sat this game out. Also, Jamal Murray had 34 points. Denver has been red hot over the last month. They beat the Hornets 129-115. They have now won 9 straight games. Joker had 29 points, 17 rebounds, and 9 assists. And Giannis is back for the Bucks. He had 23 points, and Milwaukee completed a 13-point fourth quarter comeback to win. They beat the Clippers in a game that was more or less even in terms of point spread, 116-110. One of the best teams in the East keeps winning. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Brooklyn Nets 110-97. I believe this landed right on the number of 13. The Cavs 45-10 and 40-0 this season when they lead after 3 quarters. That's incredible. Jason Tatum, Peyton Pritchard. The Celtics beat the 76ers as 7-point favorites. They won by 20, so you know they covered there. The Knicks did not cover against the Bulls, 113-111 in overtime. Karl Anthony Towns had 32 points and 18 rebounds. Brunson had 22. And the Pacers had a 50-point second quarter, and they beat the Grizzlies by a final score of 127-113. Top 25 action in college basketball included Maryland's game last night as they beat USC by 17 points, 88-71. The Terrapins are now 21-6 on the season and 11-5 in the Big Ten. Northwestern beat Ohio State and Columbus 70-49. And LaSalle's head coach, Fran Dunphy, has decided to retire at the end of the season. The legendary coach who has spent 30 years coaching in Philadelphia, Penn, Temple, and LaSalle, 17 NCAA tournament appearances. He'll call it quits at the end of the game. All right, the first time ever we saw a challenge of balls and strikes in a Major League Baseball game in a spring training game. The pitcher was Cubs pitcher Cody Poteet, who challenged a ball strike call, and he tested the ABS. And we're going to see a lot more of this now that the games begin today. The Cubs won the game 12-4. That was the final score. 5 games across baseball today as opening day is coming up. Yankees, Rays, Dodgers, Cubs, Rangers, Royals, Rockies against Corbin Burns with his debut in the Diamondbacks, and then the Mariners take on the Padres later. Meanwhile, no more jokes about Don Mattingly on The Simpsons and those sideburns. The days of having to shave as a New York Yankee have come to an end, or at least have been relaxed. Hal Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees, said that they have decided to allow well-groomed beards effective immediately. How about that? After 50 years of Yankee baseball, 100 years of Yankee baseball. Andrew Heaney has signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pitcher signs a 1-year, $5.25 million deal as the remaining free agents are trying to get themselves ready and get into camp with opening day, now less than just about 1 month away. We are so fortunate to have Pat Evans back with us for a three-peat here on Newswire this week. I don't even have to pay for that, by the way. Pat Riley's not going to come calling for me. I didn't make a T-shirt or anything like that. But Pat is back with us from Legal Sports Report. And Pat, more topics to go over today, I guess.
I mean, it's unbelievable how many topics I can bring during a week.
You
and
really
thankfully, you get a relief from me on Monday when Sam comes back. So you're lucky. And tonight, hopefully, I get a good weekend with a Michigan State win over Michigan. But we'll see how that goes tonight.
A big Friday college basketball game. I kind of like that. Usually Saturday is reserved for that. But all right. All right. So I wish we had better news to start off with here, but we are just telling you how it is. Texas sports betting bill. We're going to find out pretty soon if this is going to go one way or the other. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're making much progress here.
No, and then it's not totally surprising. I mean, I know I've been coming on here a lot this year talking about all the momentum that's been building, but all that's been with that caveat of, you know, in the Senate, you have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick saying it's very unlikely that he'll bring sports betting to a vote. And that's because, in general, it's not a majority Republican-supported bill. It needs the bipartisanship. It is Republican-sponsored, but, you know, he is the stopgap there. Even though Governor Greg Abbott has come out and said he won't be in the way of it. So that's kind of there. What did happen, though, is kind of the House makeup changed. And if you remember, in 2023, a online sports betting bill did pass the House with its 100 votes that was needed for 2/3 majority in the House, which it needs in both chambers because it's a constitutional amendment, which then goes to a public vote. And this year, you've got two bills, including one for online sports betting, one for casino destination resorts and sports betting, both introduced by Republican representatives. So that's, a good sign for starters. It'll get started moving. But for those who think it can kind of take the same path and pass as it did in the House in 2023, a little bit of a problem. There's 26 new representatives that are Republicans, many of which are against sports betting and gambling expansion, which puts that 100 vote milestone kind of in limbo. And of course, you'd have to pass the House to get to that Senate because there isn't a Republican Senate sponsor for sports betting yet. So Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick still is saying, you know what, we don't have the Republican support in the Senate.
Right.
It's a no-go. And the biggest quote in a Dallas Morning News story recently kind of outlining this was from a representative, Matt Shaheen, and he said, I have a whole coalition of organizations, and we're going to make sure it's dead. It's 6 feet under. It's not going to pass the House. So if you've got a rep that dug in against it, it doesn't look great. I mean, even though you've got lots of organizations in the state fighting for it, lots of money in from the sports teams and owners and casino magnate Miriam Adelson, again, lots of momentum going, but because of that one big problem in the Senate and the majority of the Texas GOP being against gambling expansion, Texas looks like another year of long shots, and it will likely be waiting until 2027. But again, you never know. Anything can happen. That's why these sessions are in progress.
Yeah, you never know until the vote comes in. All right, so, what I find fascinating is some of the new responsible gaming ads, Pat, are really focused more around accepting the fact that people and younger people are going to bet on sports, which I don't know that we would have guessed these kind of ads would have been around 5 years ago. But I think we've come to the foregone conclusion that it's going to happen. And so over at this website, knowyourplay.org, that's the new responsible gambling website that they have up, it seems to just simply focus on younger people who are betting and making sure they just understand what their limits should be. And that's, a pivot from where we were several years ago, where people just said, don't bet if you can. Now it's like, all right, if you are, just be careful, right?
Yeah, I mean, when this started, in 2018, the big wave of legalization, it was important to note the importance of regulation. We talk about that all the time, about bringing it into the light, making sure consumer protections are there. And I think this is the next step, and it is because we are seeing lots of headwinds. We've talked about the U.S. congressional hearings, the U.S. bills that are being considered to put nationwide frameworks in this. We've seen a lot of action at the state level talking about responsible gambling being more important, more advertising restrictions and the like. Well, the Responsible Online Gaming Association, which is made up of 9 of the operators in the sports betting industry, including FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, they've put out this Know Your Play campaign. It's, to your point, focused at college age demographics, not necessarily college students. It's just that age of demographics, which people often say is the riskiest demographic when you're getting into sports betting and gambling. And it is all about kind of teaching them just the things you laid out, know your limits, know the mental health aspects of this and how it can become a problem, things like that. And it is a lot of online resources, but they are going to do in-person seminars and workshops on college campuses. They said they're also going to have pilot programs at a few special, certain colleges to do this. And I think this is just another step from all these operators who, at times it might have felt sometimes, I'm not saying it is. I know a lot of the people at these organizations and they do care about responsible gambling and worrying about addiction and the like. But a lot of times it could have felt, and for people who are against the industry might feel, it's a lot of lip service about responsible gambling. But I think this is another big step in the right direction of saying, hey, no, we really want to take proactive steps in helping make sure this doesn't become a big societal problem. Because we know the importance of having a regulated industry and we don't want it to become a bad problem in the country.
Yeah, no doubt. Makes sense. All right. March Madness is coming here, and it looks like 2 teams from Alabama here, Pat, are maybe going to be 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. My gosh, the state of Alabama is missing a nice opportunity here to bet on sports, and it doesn't look like that's coming anytime soon.
No, it doesn't. And, I think to your point, that could be something that the lawmakers in Alabama might say, hey, wait a second, look at this. This is incredible. We've got our football teams that are great. We've got, these basketball teams that are great this year. What can we do? But coming into this session, we knew last year a bill got through the House to legalize sports betting, casino gaming, and a lottery. It's one of 5 states without a lottery. And it fell on deaf ears in the Senate. It completely stripped and then fell apart in a conference committee. And that's kind of an interesting note because the House, built their bill on a bill that had passed in previous years in the Senate. And so this year coming in, the House kind of threw their hands up in the air and said, it needs to start in the Senate. This week, Senator Greg Albritton, who's kind of been the champion of this issue of late in the Senate the last couple of years, said, I can't even introduce or won't introduce legislation because I know I'm at least a vote or two short of potential passage in Alabama. And that's just kind of been how it's been in Alabama. You've got these chambers that are just kind of a tug of war situation, not sure what they want to do. We've talked, over the last couple of years about kind of just the block of conservative voters in the Southeast that are very anti-gambling. And I think that's very true in Alabama. But I do think, to your point, maybe having both college football and college basketball being a big thing in that state now, maybe they do say, hey, this is something our Alabamians want. And that is something we've seen in polls. Why don't we go ahead and do that? So we'll see. And then, I just want to throw this in because before coming on, I saw a bill pop up in our bill tracker that, earlier this week, we talked about Vermont lawmakers introducing a bill to repeal sports betting.
Yeah.
We just saw a bill of similar vein pop up in Maryland. So,
wow.
We talked about it potentially becoming a, trend. And there you have it. We've got a second state already with introduction of repealing sports betting.
Wow. I mean, Maryland, that's a significant state. I don't want to go dig in on Vermont again. I was already going to get people mad there. But in Maryland, that's a big state for all sports. And, certainly some of the biggest teams, the Orioles, the Ravens, and, right next to D.C. Boy, we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe we'll talk about that next week, Pat. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball tonight. And we will wish your Spartans good luck. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Talk to you soon.